Here's the last part of the curtain wall story. If I create another instance of my curtain wall, this is my style that was the one called storefront, although what I had done was to change the spacing to make it 4 feet by 4 feet. I'll change the justification to say that it's centered between the 2 points, first and second point. So if I go to justification here, I can say center it, just so you see. Actually, let me make that a little bit longer just so that you see what I'm referring to. If I let me just check. Oh, unconnected height was to be 9 feet, and you can see that that is centered. I should be able to. I was trying to make it so there were tiny end panels here. That makes it a little clearer that what it's doing is starting from the center, using the 4 foot spacing, and then filling in the end with equally sized panels, just so you could see it. Okay, so the point that I wanted to make to finish this off is that unlike most of the families that are in Revit, when you want to look at the components that make up the curtain wall, they're actually in the project. So if I expand on the Families tab, you don't need to do this. This is just an explanation of how it works. So if I expand on the Families panel category here, and I go to curtain wall mullions, what I want you to see is that there are these different styles of mullion in the project. So we did specify some of those. To make a new one, you pick on the type, you pick on the categorization rectangular mullion, say new type, and let's call this 24-inch fin panel, something like that. So I can create a new type. I then right click on that and say look at the type properties. And so the properties of that panel, kind of confusingly where it says thickness, it actually really means depth. So if I change that to say 24-inch, and then because you've got a grid line, and if your panel were not symmetrical around that grid line, you could have different values. Let's assume it is symmetrical, and let's assume that we want a panel that in total is going to be 2 inches wide, so 1 inch either side of the grid line. And then I'm going to leave it at that just to show you that I can create that panel. So why am I not seeing the 24-inch fin? Because in the curtain wall that I've got here, if I look at the edit type, you see that I don't have the interior panel specified. So if I pick on this now, interior type, I can change it to the one that I just created called 24-inch fin, and apply and OK. And now I've got my okay, let me just go back and check that again. So I have a panel that now says 24-inch fin vertically. I think I must not have saved the values, so let me just look at the properties. 2 feet, 24-inch fin. Oh, it's actually the height that I'm looking at. I'm not seeing I'm not cutting through I'm not seeing the mullion on here. Let me adjust the let me show you this with a camera view. It'll be clearer what's going on. So if I say view, camera, where I'm standing here, and I'm looking right towards my, I won't go all the way through, I'll just show the front panel there. There's my 24-inch mullion. So something was going on where it's cutting through at a height that wasn't actually showing me the mullion, but now I can see it. And the point that I want to make is if I go back to the fin, let me shade this first. I'm going to take the type properties. So we had 24-inch, we had it 2 inches wide. You can also specify an angle. I'm going to change it to 10 degrees and say OK, so you can see that you can turn it within the panel itself. Don't know if that was clear. So I turned that away from being perpendicular to the face of the curtain wall to being 10 degrees. Let me do it again. Type properties, let's say 45. I'm going to exaggerate just so you can see that I'm able to control it. Yeah, so you see I've turned this 45 degrees. Let me look at this in plan view, might make it a bit clearer. It would make it clearer if I could actually see it. Let me change under the properties of the view, let me change the view range and set this at something like say 4'3". Let me see if that, so that's a little curious. So when you cut right through at the same level as the panel, the mullion end is, I couldn't see it on the view. So when this said 4 feet, I couldn't see the actual mullion. But when I changed it to something where I'm not exactly at the end of the mullion, then I can see it in my plan view. That's a little weird. If I go back to my, let me turn it to 10 degrees, so looking at the properties of the mullion, if I change that back to 0, let's see if I can make this a little smaller on the screen so you can see it. So if I change that to 0 and say apply, the angle changes back. So the last part of this is the offset, right? If I said offset it by 6 inches, 6 inches, not 6 feet, you'll see that I can move it to the outside. And if I use the minus, so 0 is going to be centered on the line that was used to draw the curtain wall. And I can move it forward and backwards. I can use negative to go in the way, and I can use positive to come out the way. And that's kind of why I was emphasizing the fact that when you draw the curtain walls, you go, if you go clockwise around the center of the building, you can be sure that the curtain wall is each curtain wall is going to know which direction is out. You won't have a case where in some places the curtain walls are being moved in, and in other places they appear to be being moved out, because you'll see you don't have a flip here to flip it over. You can do it with, you don't have a flip symbol, you can do it with the space bar, but you don't want to have to go around all the walls of your building that are using this setup. You want to be sure that each of them knows what is outside and what is inside. Okay, let me stop there. I went on a little too long, but hopefully that clarifies some things about curtain walls.